Hi guys, it's Kobe here, and in today's video we are going to talk about Cinema 4D's capsules and the nodal system. So capsule is a way of using Cinema 4D node assets with the regular Cinema 4D object manager or Cinema 4D object. And I'll be doing a video to explain what each and every geometry modifier and geometry selection does in my subsequent videos. Although the Cinema 4D nodal system, which is called the C nodes, is still in development, as Maxon claims, but still there's so much powerful things you can do as at now, even in your regular production and doing normal motion graphics or animation stuff with it. So without further talking, let's get into Cinema 4D R25 and let's see what we can do. So I'll start with the simplest of things. So if you come to this icon here and click on it, you see we have all this, and you click on nodes, so we can actually go ahead and search for mesh, and you can see we have mesh primitive group, not this one but this particular one, mesh primitive. Can click and drag and drop it straight into Cinema 4D's object manager. I'll click here to hide this, and now we have a new mesh primitive in here, and this is made from nodes basically. But the advantage with this one is, instead of, for instance, I have a cube here created, right? But I can come in here and all the primitives that I have here, the sphere, capsules, and all of those things are also here. Basically, I think the only thing which is not here is the figure object, but have all the capsules here. And the advantage is, so I can simply change it from cube, and I'll say I want a cone, and straight away it turns to a cone, pyramid, and it turns into a pyramid. So for instance, if I, and it interacts with all the Cinema 4D objects. So if I have had a clone, I'll create a clone, I'll make it a child of the clone. And now, so imagine I'm doing a work or something and realize now I don't think the clone the pyramids are working. I can simply come in here and I'll change it from pyramids to, like, say, cone, and all everything that you have in Cinema 4D, the controls, the caps, everything is also available for us. So this is one of the simplest things, which I think is very, very intuitive, and straight away you can start using, and it makes actually all this even looks a bit not necessary, because you can have one particular object that contains all of this, and you can change it anytime that you want. So this is one particular simple thing, smallest thing, which I think I like. And you can also find the individual node based version of the primitive. So if I come to the asset manager and I come to geometry primitive, you can see we have all the primitives here. So I can simply drag and drop the cube instead of coming here, the cylinder and all of that, the landscape, which are all under the mesh primitive object I used initially. Another interesting thing that I like is, let me just go back to the assets and go back to nodes, and I'll search for atom array, right? And same way I can simply drag and drop it into Cinema 4D object manager, and now we have an atom array here, which is also made completely from nodes, and it's just like the Cinema 4D atom array we have in here, but this one is a bit gives you a bit more control, or a lot more control, than the normal Cinema 4D atom array. So if I come in here and I create a normal atom array, which we have here, I can actually use a simple cube to demonstrate. So I'll drag it in the old one, and you can see we have cylinders and spheres. That's all we can do with it. We can make the spheres smaller, where the atom can reduce the size of the sphere, but there's no way the sphere can be smaller than the cylinders, and there's nothing you can do. All you can do is change the segments, and that's the basic control you have. But with this one, I can drag the cube into this particular atom array. I'll delete the old one, and now we select this one. We have you see the controls we have. So we have controls for the sphere and controls for the cylinder. And another thing is, we can give each of them different materials. So if I come to the material manager, I'll create two materials. I'll make one red, and I'll leave this one as it is. So I'll drag it, simply click on the atom array, and I'll drag the red into, you can see the sphere material. There's a section here, you can drag and drop in the red. You can see Now it's only affecting just the spheres. And now this one, I'll make this one probably blue so that we see. Select, drag into the cylinder, and we have this material for the cylinders. Now that's not all. With the cylinders, you can control the scaling of the cylinders. Actually, let me have it selected. The radius of the cylinder, the scaling of the cylinder, the segment, and all of that. So I'll make it full. And one thing is, if I should make the segment just full, you can see it now looks like a regular cube. So now I can rotate it, can rotate the cylinder. So I'll rotate it to 45 degrees, and I can, now it looks like cubes and spheres instead of cylinders and spheres. So I can even, let's see, hide the cube, the spheres, and now we have cubes on the edges of our primitive normal cube, right? We can also use same thing, the mesh primitive that we used initially. So I'll come in here again, and I'll come to my quick access, choose the favorite, and I'll bring in the mesh primitive. Same way, I'll make it a child of the atom array, and something happens, it's not showing, but usually, as usual, the connect object comes to our rescue. So I'll bring in the connect object, make the mesh primitive a child of the connect object, and make it, put it into the atom array, and now it works with the mesh primitive. So we can come in here and simply change it from our cube to disk, make it thick, bring back spheres and everything. So this one interesting thing that I also like about the Cinema 4D capsule assets. And there are also other generators in here. So if I come to the asset browser and I'll come to nodes, you can see we have geometry generators. If I come to click on it, you can see we have the atom array, which I showed here. We also have brick wall, which I can drag and drop. And you have this brick wall, you have grass, which I think for now doesn't work. The mesh primitive 2 is here. There's tree, which also, like, so there are other generators which you can also go ahead and play with to see how it functions. Next is the spline primitive. Just like our mesh primitive, the spline primitive also contains all the basic splines in Cinema 4D and then some, except the cogwheel spline. So I'll come here to asset and I'll look for spline primitive. You can type everything, but if you scroll down here, we have the spline primitive. And if you want to add it to your favorite, you can just click on this love icon here and it will be added to your favorite. So if I should come to I'll actually clear this and I come to quick access. You can see if I open it, you have favorites here, and I click on the favorite, you can see I have a couple of things I have in here. So this is the spline primitive, so I can quickly get access to it all the time I want, and I will drag straight into my object manager. Now I have it in here, so I'll click on this to hide it. And just like I said, it contains all the splines that we have in our regular Cinema 4D, except I think the cogwheel, but also have other splines that normal Cinema 4D start. So for instance, we have one interesting spline in here which I like, the 7 segment display, and it works with the normal Cinema 4D object as well. So I can come in here and I'll create my normal extrude, make it a child, and now I have my spline working. I can change it from this to rectangle, and we are back. Can change it to a text object. Can type in a text, and it functions like the Cinema 4D text spline. You can simply change it from there to a let's say what particular circle. All of the splines basically are here, and I see this being very useful with the sweep object, where you can define the shape of your sweep. You can change anytime you want, from circle to cube to sphere, and very useful. So this is another simple thing which I like about the Cinema 4D assets, capsule assets. So now you see we have node-based primitives, node-based generators, and now we are going to the next one, which is node-based modifiers, which act like typical deformers they need to be a child or a sibling to an object before they can function. So we are going to the node-based modifier. But before we do that, take note that you can go ahead and create your own generators or primitives from scratch and make it interact with the Cinema 4D object manager. And there's a way to do that. So if I come to the asset browser and I'll come here and I'll search for mesh primitive, you can see we have mesh primitive group, right? And if I drag that and drop it into our scene Cinema 4D object, I delete this, you can see nothing happens here, meaning we can go into this and create our own primitive right from scratch. So if I double click on it, it opens, and in here we can create our own primitive. Same thing applies to creating a generator object. And so you come to the asset browser again, and now you look for object, and you can see you have object group. So when you click and drag it, it's the same thing. So when I double click on it, it opens, and in here we can go ahead and create our generator object as well. Now, geometry selection and geometry modifier. These are a set of node-based modifiers which helps you to manipulate your geometry non-destructively, and it acts like not the former, either a child of the geometry or a sibling of the geometry, and it can act on it. So I'll go ahead and create a normal cube, and I'll increase the segment to 5 by 5 by 5. Then I'll come to the asset browser, and now you can see in the notes we have geometry modifier and geometry selection, right? So I'll go into the geometry selection, and now I'm going to make selection of the polygons, which ideally I wouldn't be able to make in older versions of Cinema 4D unless I make the object editable. But now I can simply come in here and I'll choose random selection, make it a child, and what it's doing is selecting 50% of the polygons right now, because the mode is set to polygon. It can be point or edge, but it's selecting 50% of the polygons randomly. So but we can't see for now. So for us to see, we probably have to, so we can use store selection, right? And now continue to make that a child of the cube. It should be under the random selection, and now we can give it a name. So I'll say 1, and now instantly it gives us a selection tag here. So if I come to my material manager, I have a material here which I can apply to the cube. And now if I should come to the material tag and the selection, I drag in this one, you can see it limits it to just the part that has been selected by this random selection. So if I should increase it now to 100, it means it select everything. And if I should drop it down, I can also change the seed. And that's just a tip of the iceberg. Several things that we can do. I can actually take off the random selection, and I'll come in here and I'll choose select, right, which says nothing. So if I should choose 1, and see now it's choosing like the polygon 1 of the cube. I can 12, and it goes to polygon 12 of the cube. If I should choose 0, 0, this is the polygon 0 of the cube, and you can actually do 0 to, let's say, 20, and now it selects from 0 up to 20, or 0 comma, let's say 8. You can see select 0 and 8, and now I'll say okay, comma 15 to 20. And now you can see okay, let me actually let this dash, and you can see, so you select 0 comma 8, 15 to 20. So there are several things that you can actually go and do in here. So I can actually, let me hide this particular one. I can come and create, let's say, a normal sphere, and now I'll come use, there are several selection here, so I'll actually use select facing. Let's see, select facing, and now what it's doing is it's selecting 15 angle of 15 of the faces facing on the x axis. So if I should increase it, I mean, you can actually not see anything. So same way, we'll bring the store selection again for us to see what's happening. And now I'll add the sphere. We'll do the same thing here. I'll give it a name of 1, and I'll select the material tag and drag in our selection. Actually, where is it? Drag in our selection in here, so you can see what's happening. Let me actually increase the segment of the sphere as well, and now you can see it's selecting now 20% of the faces that's facing angle of 20, the faces that's facing on the X. So if I should increase the angle, you can see it's going deeper, and the more I increase it, it keeps going, keep growing and growing, and all of that's interesting. And I can actually also use n opposite, so I can add the opposite side as well. You can see it's selecting the two faces, so both sides. So if I should increase it now, it goes from both ends. I can change the angle, I mean, for because it's existing, I can change it to Y, and it grows from up to top to bottom, and on the Z the same thing basically. And you can combine this with other material stuff to do a lot of interesting things that will make it very, very interesting. For instance, I can come in here. So if let's go to the geometry modifier. So I can come to the geometry modifier, and I'll probably choose, let's see, delete, right? So I'll drop the delete under the selection, and you can see now it's deleting all the store selection. So if I should increase, you can see the more I increase it, it keeps deleting. So you can actually go ahead and keyframe this if you want. Set a keyframe here, and I don't know, push it, and let's see what happens. So if I should hit play, wow. So you can do exciting things. I mean, I didn't even think of this, but I think it's quite interesting, the kind of things you can do with all of these things as well. So this just the tip of the iceberg. So like, let's do another thing and see what happens. So I have a cube here, so I'll actually come to the geometry modifiers, and I'll drop in insets. And insets, I think it's like extrude inner, so it takes all the polygons and extrude them inner. You can add variation and stuff to it as well. Then now I'll go ahead and let's delete. No, it's delete. Now I want to delete just the insects. Okay, let me use extrude and see what happens. It's extruding the whole thing. Okay, no, selection, select, and I'll select, and I'll choose all, right? And now let's add the extrude to see what happens. Go back to geometry modifier and extrude, and now yeah, it's so extruding all the places, the inset, right? So you can simply go ahead and do again, select the two, hold control and drag and drop it under, and you can see. So now let's add the delete and see what happens. So it's deleting, see the top is, so it's deleting this one, the extrude. After the extrude, the select part. This can really be fun, honestly speaking. I'm loving it. Let's do another one to see what happens, and let's drop it in the subdivision surface, see what we have. So yeah, it can be fun playing around with this this whole thing. There are a lot of things that you can go ahead and do in here. So for instance, I can hide this. Let's try something else. Probably create a platonic, right? And you go to let's see what we can play with. There is one I saw which I think it could be interesting. Chamfer, yeah. So I'll make it a child, the platonic, and it's so it's chamfering the point, basically like beveling or something, beveling the point. So I'll increase the size, and right there we have something like a ball. This really can be really interesting. It's if it's so basically that's about this thing. Let me go ahead and add insets to it. Now we have insert in here, right? And now let's add the extrude to it. Extrudes everything, but I'll go back to the selection and I'll select I think all again, and now you are just affecting just the extrude part. You can go ahead and do the same thing, drag the tool and probably the insets. Now pretty extrude, can even do more, and you have something complicated just like that. I really love this. I really like this. And there are several things, I think a lot of interesting things that you can create with this just like that. Nothing, just a platonic, and the platonic is still live, so I can go in here, increase segment, and things will change and all that. This is really interesting. Nice. Want to see what people, the kind of things, interesting things people will use this thing to create. So basically this is about the modifiers, geometry modifiers and geometry selection. So you can go ahead and do a lot of operation with this one. And upon all this, so aside this being created, you can go ahead and create your own sort of modifier selection, geometry selection. So you simply, let's say I have this cube, so I'll create a cube in here and I'll add like some segment as well. Let's change the display to where's the cube? All right, so I'll add the segment in here. So for us to create, create our own modifier, I can simply type geometry modifier. You can see geometry modifier group, make it a child of the cube, and when you double click on it, same as the object and the primitive group, mesh group, you can create our own geometry, how do you call it, modifiers in here. So I can simply come in here and I'll simply look for, so I'll type, press C, and I'll say extrude, right? And now I have the extrude in here, and now it's giving geometry in. So the geometry in is this particular geometry, right? So that's it here. And now out, so whatever we do, then you output it to this geometry out for it to display. So now extrude, so we'll push the geometry in here and geometry out here. And now let's see what happens. You can see it's extruding. So you can go ahead and do the insets in here. So let's see, insets, actually, so I'll bring in the insets. So now this into, it goes either way. I can put it in front depending on how I want it, geometry out. You can see we have the insert. So let me go ahead and add the selection, select, and add the select to it. And now drag this here and here, and now you can go into the select and say all, and now see the same operation, but in here this time you are doing with the nodes. All right, it's as simple as A, B, C, D. I think I really love this thing, and I'm sure a lot of people will do a lot of creative stuff with it. So we can come into the insert and now do everything. Now you can hold control to copy this, like, right, then connect this to this to that, select the whole thing, and I think you press L and it'll arrange it smoothly for you. So you can go ahead and do the same thing like we're doing. Select this, drag it out, and now place this into this and that, and you are seeing you are doing the same thing using the geometry modifier group. Basically you are doing it in our node. So you can go ahead and search for delete either delete. Now you can drop our delete in here, and we will add it on top, and you can see we did same thing that we did. We've created it, but this time using nodes, and I'll go ahead and I'll make it add the subdivision surface object. You see, we've created the same thing again in here. So basically, this is all about Sigma 4D, and there are a lot of exciting things going forward. We're breaking things down a bit more and show the things I've learned. I'm still in the learning phase and learning more interesting stuff. So I'm glad you were able to watch it to this point, and I hope you've taken a lesson or two away. So see you in the next one, and thank you for watching.